The IMN is neither a political party nor a registered NGO, rather an intellectual and humanitarian movement based on the principles of peace while assisting and empowering those in need. For a movement of a few thousand to some 20 million, the IMN has members from different Muslim denominations, as well as Christians and those of other faiths, seeking primarily social justice for every member of society. In lieu of government state actions, the movement has established hundreds of clinics and over 360 primary and secondary schools to provide much needed medical and educational services, especially for the most neglected women and children of this particular region. In the 1980s, there was a general strike when hospitals were shut down. This is when the IMN moved in, established free medical assistance to anyone who came to their clinics. I'd like to refer to a pastor named Yohana Buru Kaduna. He's a pastor in Nigeria, and he speaks about, he's had a relationship with Sheikh Zakzaky over the last 3 decades. And every time he remembers Zakzaky and the IMN have come to the aid and assistance of Christians in Nigeria over these years. During riots and attacks on churches in Nigeria, the Islamic movement of Nigeria assisted thousands of wounded and injured citizens to get the medical attention they needed. The fact that some media reports have indicated that there is a coalition between Boko Haram and the IMN is absurd, as the two organizations are so diametrically at odds with their values, missions, objectives, and actions. In fact, during a peaceful IMN procession in 2014, the Boko Haram tried to intimidate the crowds by blasting bombs. Within an hour, the procession continued and showed the unbelievable resolve and commitment to truth and justice of the IMN followers of Sheikh Zakzaky, in spite of the terrorist attacks by the Boko Haram. In summer of 2014, on Al-Quds Day, the annual pro-Palestinian protests that happened around the world on the last Friday of Ramadan, demonstrators in Zaria, Nigeria were attacked by the military. It resulted in the death of 18 members of the IMN, as well as many bystanders. Sheikh Zakzaky lost 3 of his own sons during what was to be a peaceful demonstration. It was widely thought that this incident would push the Islamic movement in Nigeria to respond with violence. However, Sheikh Zakzaky's response at the funerals was to remind everyone that the movement's greatest weapon was a struggle of truth and justice, putting faith in God and remaining patient and non-violent during challenging times. Following these killings in 2014, Masood Shajare of the Islamic Human Rights Commission visited Zaria and witnessed people from different backgrounds, government officials, leaders of different Muslim communities and Christian communities coming in huge crowds every single night to the house of Sheikh Zakzaky to give their condolences. In particular, he saw 2 Christian women who had come to pay their respects. When he questioned them as to why they had come, they responded that every time there was communal violence, Sheikh Zakzaky sent members of the movement to protect their homes so they could sleep peacefully. This type of understanding and cooperation during times of brutality and social injustice transcends long-standing and divisive narratives and is both a powerful and transformative part of the Islamic movement's appeal across religious and political contrasts in Nigeria. In December 2015, the Nigerian army attacked the IMN center, killing almost 1,000 people, including many women and children, and the 3 remaining sons of Sheikh Zakzaky. They were murdered with his sister, who was burned alive. At that time, the authorities also imprisoned 150 IMN followers who are still illegally detained to this day. Then the military went on to raid Sheikh Zakzaky's residence in Zaria and seriously injured him and his wife. Sheikh Zakzaky himself was shot, brutally beaten. One of his eyes had been severely damaged, leaving him blind. His wife also sustained 2 gunshots. And the bullets from these attacks remain lodged in their bodies 3.5 years later. This has resulted in extreme levels of lead poisoning. Imagine being shot, not given medical attention, suffering from poisoning, lack of food and sanitation facilities, under duress. If this is not enough, imagine the trauma of how Sheikh Zakzaky and his wife were removed from their residence. This elderly couple, a man of God, a cleric, was dragged by soldiers over the dead bodies of his own children. Despite the personal loss of 6 sons and detainment where he and his wife have been tortured and denied basic needs, including medical attention, Sheikh Zakzaky has remained unwavering in the mission of his movement. The IMN has recently been made unlawful by the Nigerian authorities. We stand here today with Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky, the Islamic movement of Nigeria, and the oppressed and tortured people of Nigeria and all around the world. This is why we are here tonight, appealing to all of you for your support to stop the brutality that has gone on way too long. Both Sheikh Zakzaky and his wife are still being held illegally in violation of a court order issued in December of 2016 demanding their release. And more recently, just 5 days ago, on August the 5th, the Kaduna State High Court in Nigeria granted bail to the pair to leave Nigeria and travel to India to receive special medical attention. We still await anxiously for the Nigerian government to allow this to happen. It is critical now that we continue to apply pressure on the Nigerian government to end this senseless, systematic torture and assassination in progress. Every day, an hour is critical to Sheikh Zakzaky and his wife's survival. Let's take action in whatever ways we can. We're calling on all brothers and sisters in faith and in humanity to take a stance and show your support.
I invite Shifa Nakwi, a spoken word poet from Calgary, Alberta, with a passion for social justice, to present her beautiful lines of poetry.
This is so much more than simply a protest, a demand for justice, a call for unity. No, this is about a great man we know as Sheikh Zakzaky. And when I say this is more than a protest, I say what I believe. We stand shoulder to shoulder for the world to see the reality that we have let be, where greatness is placed behind the bars of silence, which say it will unlock soon, but that is only so they can maintain the balance, to show the world that they are not fiends, but we, the voices of the silent, the eyes of the blind, know that this is not the reality. So why allow ourselves to be shushed by the cameras? Why allow ourselves to be quieted by the opinions of others who simply see us as people gathered in numbers? No. Because the shackles will be broken today, for today we will speak. Zaria, a place where the army has cloaked the massacre with a blanket of lies, as the world watched silently as the death toll of the innocent rise. The only crime was to stand beside a man who taught them to speak for what is good, for what is right, and for what is just. What we fail to view is that this man is the reason the silent revolution grew. How much his words were deemed too powerful, his followers seen as too capable. A revolution had stepped foot in this land, but the regime in command couldn't stand the idea that the power could be slipped from their hands. Where there were once mountains, now lay the bodies of the dead who once stood firm, powerful. The only appropriate term, imagine. A government that is so fearful of one single man, how much command he must have had and how much conviction and his light, that this regime is willing to go through this inhumane fight to ensure that this single man would not make this world far more bright. And his followers, those who we should desire to be, those who were shot down just because they were fighting for the rights of the downtrodden and weak. So why stand out here chanting for his freedom? Why? Because he is humanity. He is the definition of what we must live by. He is not bowing down to injustice or the tyrant, so why should we? If only you could wrap your mind around how dark that place is and how bright your soul is, how you can be the light for the person who is stuck in this fight. This is a call to stop injustice, to stop a massacre that has been going on and on in silence. If only those tyrants could open their eyes, they would see that by imprisoning Sheikh Zakzaky, they only let his voice be amplified. This is far greater than you and me and Sheikh Zakzaky. This is a story of how you can cage a man but not silence his speech. And through the cities and the seas, they will hear us chant, "Free, free Zakzaky." Thank you.
To shed more light on this issue, I invite Sheikh Murtaza. Sheikh Murtaza grew up here in Vancouver, where he was involved in organizing various community activities and youth initiatives from a young age. In 2006, he and his wife began their formal religious education in the Islamic Seminary in Qom. They returned to Vancouver in 2010, and he has since been serving various communities here in the Greater Vancouver area.
I want to first begin with a short update on Sheikh Zakzaky. Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky of Nigeria. As Sister Sukaina mentioned, he had been detained now for over 5 years, almost 5 years, without any real charges, without any real reason. Even the government is struggling to find a reason to charge him. When he was detained, he was shot. When he was detained, he was injured. And he still suffers and struggles with that injury. The recent reports tell us that this man of God, this great personality, is now suffering from poison, lead and cadmium poisoning, which has remained from the bullets that have remained in his body. His wife is injured as well. And at this moment, I remind you once again that one of the reasons why we are here is because this man's life now teeters between life and death. He needs urgent and emergency medical attention. In this period of time, his supporters, his followers, the people of conscience in Nigeria have stood up, they have protested, they have peacefully spoken out. And the brutal regime of Buhari in Nigeria has responded by opening fire on them, by killing them, by injuring them, and by imprisoning so many of them. And that's one of the other reasons why we are here today. I don't need to remind you that the situation in Nigeria is a very dire situation. But I do want to begin by thanking you for coming out this afternoon, in a cloudy afternoon in Vancouver. I'm sure on the weekend there are many places where you could have been, but you have chosen to be over here. And it's important that we be over here in the heart of downtown Vancouver. You find in every culture, in every society, people have a tendency to remember their heroes and also to remember the villains as well. We remember the Moses and we remember the Pharaohs. We remember the Abrahams and we remember the Nimrods. In our culture, we remember the Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. And we also remember the Yazid, the oppressor, the evil tyrant. But I tell you, it's equally important that we know the pharaohs of today, and we know the good people that follow in the footsteps of the messengers of God. We know the good people who stand up for truth and justice. And I tell you, it's equally important that we support those good people. We support them in their efforts. We support them in their drive for justice. And it's equally important that we stand against oppression and we stand against injustice today. Now I know that many of us have come here out of concern for the health, the well-being, the life of this great person, Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. But I wonder sometimes, that what would Sheikh Zakzaky himself think if he knew that we were gathering for him today? We were gathering to ask for his release. We were gathering to ask for his urgent medical treatment. What would he say to us? And I'm reminded by a clip I saw this morning where Sheikh Zakzaky himself, a few years ago, speaks about the power of prayer. And he's asked, because he speaks about being imprisoned before, being tortured before, and he speaks about how he was able to overcome that. And he remembers the tragedy of Karbala. And he says, when I think of that great personality of Al-Hussein and how he sacrificed his life, and you know that historically he was beheaded, how he was willing to sacrifice his head for the sake of truth, for the sake of justice, for the sake of what is right. When I think of him, my sacrifice becomes easy for me. That's Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. And I tell you today, if he saw us, this is what he would tell us. He would tell us, my life is not that important. My health and well-being is not that important. What is more important is the movement, the message. What is more important is truth and justice. What is more important is education. What is more important is uplifting people. What is more important is advocating for their rights. What is more important is bringing dignity and honor back to them. What is more important is making sure they have the freedom to practice and to worship God. That is Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. And so I want to remind you that yes, we are here to demand for his urgent treatment, but we are also here to support his mission, to support his movement, to support his inspiration. And yes, we are also here not just for him and his wife, but we're also here for the people that support him and the oppressed people of Nigeria as well, who are being oppressed at this time. I also want to address fellow citizens who joined us, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And I want to address those who've come out to show support to us. And I know you may be looking at us and seeing a crowd of Muslims, a crowd of Shia Muslims, championing the right of one of their spiritual leaders, one of their scholars. And maybe you're saying to yourself, how does that pertain to me? And how is that relevant to me? And I want to ask you, and I know that truth is important to you. I know that justice is important to you. I know that honor and dignity is important to you. I know that freedom is important to you. And I know in the past, whenever you have seen a man of faith, of any faith background, champion for truth and justice, champion for freedom, you have lent your support to him. You have wanted to help him. You have cried over him. I know when you heard of Gandhi, you related to him because you saw he stood not only for his own people, but for all people in the Indian subcontinent. When you heard of Mandela, you didn't say he's in South Africa. You didn't say he's far away. When you saw a man stand up for truth and justice for his people, all of his people, you wanted to support him. Well, I tell you that even though he is a Muslim cleric, he's a man that transcends his own community. He stands not only for his own community, he stands for all of the people of Nigeria. He advocates for all of the oppressed people in Nigeria and in Africa. And that's why you should stand here and show your support for him. And I hope you'll take some time to speak to the individuals that we have, to sign some of the letters there that we have, and to show support to Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. I hope you'll speak to your parliamentarians as well. I also want to take this opportunity to share some words for Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky himself. And I know he probably won't hear my words. And I probably know he won't hear this speech and this lecture. But I know if I speak from my heart, that the heart can speak to hearts. That the heart of the believers are connected to each other. And so as we stand today on behalf of all those who are here, I want to share some words to Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. Our dear Sheikh, Our hearts are with your heart. Our spirit is with your spirit. Our words are with you. Our prayers are for you. Our support is for you as well. Oh dear Sheikh, you are an example of patience and perseverance. And we pray that God gives you more patience and perseverance in this path. You have suffered so much, but the Almighty says, and give good news to those who are patient. Those, when they are faced with hardship and difficulty, they say, we belong to God and to Him we shall return. Upon them is the mercy and blessing of God, and they are the ones who are successful. Our dear Sheikh, your struggle inspires us. We are thousands of kilometers away. We are thousands of kilometers away from Nigeria, and yet your struggle reverberates with our hearts, with our people in downtown Vancouver. When people heard about you, even though the Nigerian government would not like people to hear about you, but your struggle reverberates with us as well over here. And now, I have some messages for the Nigerian government, for the Nigerian embassy in Ottawa, and we will be sending messages to them as well. We are all gathered here to demand for the unconditional release of Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. We are here to demand for his freedom, and we want it now. And I want to hear it from the crowd that's here. I'm going to ask you what we want, and what we want is freedom. And I'm going to ask you when we want it, and what I want to hear from you is we want it now. What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
We want freedom for Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky. We want his unconditional release. We want freedom for his supporters. We want freedom and rights for the oppressed people of Nigeria. My second message to the Nigerian regime of Buhari is that I don't call upon you to follow your own laws, because I know you already don't do that. I don't even call upon you to think about the consequences of your actions right now, because I know you don't do that. What I call upon the Nigerian regime is to at least have the dignity of being free people. Have the dignity of freedom of thought. We had a great personality in history, Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. When he was faced by his enemies, when they surrounded him, when they wanted to oppress him, he turned to them and said, if you do not have faith and you do not fear your return to God, then I ask you that you at least be free people. You at least have freedom. I ask the Nigerian government, what freedom is there when your policies are dictated by foreign powers? What honor and dignity is there when your policies are dictated by other powers? We know that Sheikh Zakzaky is not their biggest problem. We know they have no charges against him. We know that the court has released him. We know that the court again and again has said he needs to be released. Then why is it so important to the Nigerian government to imprison this man of God, this man of truth and justice, to imprison Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky? Where's the honor in that? Where's the dignity in that? We call upon the people of Nigeria to have freedom of thought and freedom of making their own policies. My third message to the government, the regime of Nigeria, is that fear the call of the oppressed people. For the Lord stands with those who are oppressed. For the Lord stands with those who have been oppressed. This is a universal message. This is something, whether you are Muslim or Christian, you understand that God helps the oppressed. The Bible speaks of it, the Quran speaks of it. In the book of Psalms, it is said, the Lord is the stronghold of the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. And if you have any doubt about that, you don't have to look into a book of history. You just have to look into your own neighborhood. Look into your history. Look into the history of people who are around you. If you have any doubt that the Lord stands with the oppressed people and He stands against the oppressor, then look at what happened in Libya and what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. Look at what happened in Iraq and what happened to Saddam. Look at all those who stood against the oppressed people, what happened to them. That is exactly what is going to happen to you. History is not kind to the oppressor. The Lord stands against the oppressor. My last message to the Nigerian regime is that do not think that by killing Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky, you can kill his message. You can kill his mission. You can kill his movement. You can kill his inspiration. People like him can never be killed. People like him are never dead. People like him always live in the hearts of people. They always live in the minds of people. They're always awake in the conscience of human beings. They're always awake in society. People like them, by killing them, you do not bring an end to their movement. People like them, when they are killed, they create revolutions. Do not think of them as dead. They are alive. Do not think by killing Sheikh Ibrahim Zakzaky, you can bring an end to his call for truth and justice. You can bring an end to his call for freedom. You can bring an end to his call. No, his message is a universal message. It reverberates in the hearts of people, and that is something you will never be able to control. So do not think that by killing this great man of God, this sincere human being, you're able to end the message and the mission that he has started in Nigeria. I want to end by making a prayer for the people of Nigeria, for all the oppressed people around the world, wherever they may be. And I hope that your presence today, your presence here, is a commitment of your continued support. That you will continue to send letters to your MPs, you'll continue to send letters to the Nigerian embassy, you'll go to freezakzakynow.com and you'll see what are some of the steps they have outlined over there. But inshallah, I hope that this is a manifestation of your support and your commitment. I ask you to join me in reciting a short prayer. I'm going to recite it first in Arabic, and then I'm going to translate it into English. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور اللهم أغني كل فقير اللهم أشبع كل جائع اللهم اكس كل عريان اللهم اقض دين كل مدين اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب اللهم رد كل غريب اللهم فك كل أسير اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم اشف كل مريض اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير. Thank you very much. I want to hear it loud and clear from you. Free, free Zakzaky.
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 Thank you.